There's a song that I've been obsessively listening to today and the rest of this week called Lettres Ailes, which hopefully is playing in the background now and will be playing throughout the entire video. And I find that the song encapsulates a lot of the bittersweet, melancholy feelings that I have around Assassin's Creed. And the video title might lead you to believe that I want to talk about the downfall of the franchise as an IP and the greed that Ubisoft showed by switching into the RPG genre and how Assassin's Creed is not Assassin's Creed anymore, but it actually has nothing to do with that. When I talk about the tragedy of the Assassin's Creed, I talk about the actual thing that assassins would have gone through in this fictional universe. It seems like such a painful, sad experience that is very difficult to encapsulate in words, and I think almost impossible to encapsulate in gameplay, especially when the gameplay is focused around an action video game. A video game that's supposed to be bombastic and entertaining, that is supposed to keep you on the edge of your seat with enthralling set pieces and mindless murder. And I think that all of that has a place in the franchise, but there's also a very, very unique experience that Assassin's Creed presents a player, and the reason why a lot of us can't move on from Assassin's Creed even if there are technically better games out there. And it's this feeling of unease, of wonder, of sorrow, of pain, and of hope that I have only ever felt when playing Assassin's Creed and when you play Assassin's Creed at its peak moments. And all those feelings that I've had resonate beautifully within this song. For me, the piano and the violin interplay beautifully throughout the entire song and reach crescendos that pull an emotion out of me that I would feel in these epic, memorable moments throughout the franchise, like Ezio speaking to Desmond at the end of Revelations, or in Black Flag when Edward goes to meet his daughter for the first time. I also feel these lows in the song that bring out an even more addictive emotion towards Assassin's Creed, and it's this low emotion that I want to focus on today. And it might be a little bit depressive, but if you sit back and just relax, you might just find yourself agreeing or at least understanding what I'm trying to say. There is a level of tension and sorrow that comes with understanding the Assassin's Creed, both in the modern day segments and in the historical segments, that leave a lasting impression on you that no ordinary action video game could. Because ultimately, the story of almost every assassin is a story of tragedy, but it's one of beautiful tragedy. As we've gone throughout the centuries reliving the memories of different assassins, we've seen good being enacted onto society. We've seen people be saved, relationships being formed, and hope being instilled into the hearts of countless masses who have been suppressed by any other political or military force, often represented as the Templars. But you always see that an assassin ends up either dead or alone by the end of their story. There are a couple exceptions to this, but for the most part, most conclusions to every assassin's story ends up being beautifully tragic, because for all the good that they have done, they end up realizing it was not worth much and that they were only a small pebble in the river that was history. When I think of this, I think of Altair losing his wife at such an old age, losing his son, and then dying alone in a library knowing that his job is to wait for the right person to come and understand his legacy. I think of Ezio living through decades of pain, being an assassin and trying his best to enact change only to understand he's just a conduit for a message that eludes his understanding. I think of Arno becoming an assassin and doing everything in his power to protect Elise and avenge her father, only to see her die in the last moment of the game. I want you to think of every Assassin's Creed you've ever played and try and find one that does not end in some sort of hollow tragedy. Even Valhalla, that concludes with a nonsensical ending of Eivor still wanting to pursue glory after foregoing the mission before. Once you move to the modern day, you see that Basim, the villain of the story, actually won, outlived Eivor, outsmarted everyone, and is now still alive with his love Alethea. The Assassin's Creed commands a level of existence that can only end in tragedy. There's a Shakespearean quote that I always think about when I play Assassin's Creed and I want to listen to music like this, and it goes, "Violent delights have violent ends." And although I wouldn't say that our characters, the characters we fall in love with, take delight in killing the amount of people that they do, there is a sort of fanaticism and addiction to the violence that I think is only represented properly with Bayek and Aya. When you see them talk about their kills after each mission, you can see they almost take pleasure in it. And even though that's a very physical and raw emotional reaction to what is probably going to be a pretty cathartic experience for someone who's just lost their child, I think it metaphorically represents the addiction and the pleasure that the Assassin Order throughout history has towards violence and murder. And I think at a very high concept level, the Creed does take delight in violence, thinking that it is enacting change and promoting freedom and humanity by whatever means necessary. To be an assassin is to be delighted in violence, even if at a personal level they don't take pleasure in killing the person. The assassins promote respect of the dead, even if it is your enemy. We learned this through Ezio. The assassins promote only killing those who you must and staying your blade from the flesh of the innocent. But so many times in the franchise we've seen that rule incredibly violated by all of our favorite assassins, almost as if they cannot escape the ability to kill. And just as the Assassin's Creed promotes or engages in these violent delights, most of the assassins assassins meet violent ends. And again, this quote is not to be literally taken in this half as well, because not every assassin dies a violent death, but they do have a very tragic ending most of the time. Whether that's a tragic realization, whether that's ending up alone, or whether that is being murdered like Edward Kenway, it seems like there is no such thing as a happy ending for most assassins, maybe excluding Connor. And the feeling that whenever I relive one of the assassin's memories, I am reliving a tragedy is probably, I think, the best way to synthesize why I am so addicted to this franchise. Because once you look past the unique gameplay that you had in the older games, because I still find myself loving AC Origins, for example, past the wonderful overarching modern day that really felt consequential, looking past the historical storylines or our favorite characters or the beautiful parkour, I find something that is pretty irreplaceable in any sort of media, let alone video games, and that's the tragedy of it all. I think you can find any number of video games that are good at stealth, that are good at action gameplay, that have better stories than Assassin's Creed, better written characters, better voice acting, better graphics, but no real story has ever made me feel this addicted to the beauty and the tragedy of the Assassin's Creed. I don't think in my 10 years of being a fan, I've ever understood why I kept coming back to Assassin's Creed after trying out different games, after being disenfranchised with what Ubisoft was doing and thinking I'm just going to find a different franchise to invest in. I kept coming back to Assassin's Creed thinking there was something about it that couldn't be replaced, and for the longest time I thought it was the gameplay, the parkour, the hoods, the aesthetic of the Assassin's Creed, and of course all those things are contributing factors, but I do really think that there is an underlying sad beauty to the world that Ubisoft has created, and the moments where it shines are also the moments where it most hurts. I don't consider myself to be a sad person, I don't consider myself to be someone who's looking for edgy or depressing content, but I do find myself being someone who's attracted to poetry in all things, poetry in narrative, poetry in gameplay, poetry in life, the things that you observe that seem to have a rhyme scheme to them in the most abstract of senses. And in this rather self-indulgent talk, I think I've been able to explain some rambly thoughts that I did not write down about why I think I'm so addicted to this franchise and to these stories. And I think it all can be boiled down to that one thing, the tragedy of the Assassin's Creed. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope that the song in the background that's probably been playing once or twice over is something that you've enjoyed. If you're looking for more content, you can look at this video where I talk about the narrative aspects of Assassin's Creed and how it lets you tell your own story in a slightly less depressing way than I have done in this video.